Angie, what am I supposed to talk about? Are the 3 refuges and then the happiness of being generous coming afterwards. So first of all, the 3 refuges. And I did hear that there was 3 major people. It was Jerry and the designer, and who was it, somebody else, were the 3 people who actually found the place and bought it. So that's 1 triple gem. And the 3 guarantors is another triple gem. So we always do things in 3s in Buddhism. So now we have the East Center, the West Center. We need another center. The Brahm Center, the triple gem. So no more, okay, because 4, unlucky number. So now we give the 3 refuges. The 3 refuges is a refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, which means that we look for these things as a source of inspiration, spiritual guidance, and also like power in our lives. So we look to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha as our guides and inspiration, because we do need inspiration in life. We do need guides. We can't do it by ourselves. So having inspirational figures is something which will help us throughout our life. That's what we mean by the 3 refuges. So here we go. So please sit comfortably. And I give a talk maybe for about 45 minutes, and then we can have some Q&A. And it's about the joys of generosity. And whenever I think about generosity, the first story which comes into my mind was when I was a poor student. Now remember, my father died when I was 16. My mother was a simple secretary. She lived in what's called a council flat, which was government-assisted housing for the poor. And so when I went to university, no way in the world could I take any money from my mother, so I would always do little jobs in the holidays. And I didn't have much money to live with. But I was a Buddhist, and I remember going to a talk one evening when there was an English Tibetan nun who all she was doing was working in an orphanage in the town of Kalimpong in Sikkim, I think that was called, in the very northeast of India, just helping poor people who hadn't got any mothers and fathers. And when I heard that, I was so inspired that the very next day I went to my bank and drew £20 out of my account, which was about 2 or 3 weeks, that's actually £10, 2 weeks food money for me. And I gave it to her as a donation. And that money which I gave, it may not sound much to you today, but it was a lot of money in those days, and especially for a student. That was 2 weeks food money. I never starved, but I did go hungry. Maybe I should do that today, and maybe I can... But I always remember that gift. I remember it today. One of the best £10 I'd ever spent. And I learned from such generosity, when I give and it hurts, it's really difficult, that's when I get the best happiness. And sometimes I use that because I don't just teach not by my own example. Sometimes I have to give. Sometimes you do get asked to go and talk to someone when they're really suffering. And even though that I get very tired and exhausted sometimes, but I don't care. If somebody really needs something, I can't give any money because I don't get money now, but I certainly can give my time. And every opportunity which I have given to somebody, you never get tired. Just giving of your time also gives you this immediate reward. The next story I'm going to tell was a time when some of the monks in a monastery in Thailand were making their robes so they could ordain as monks. Again, in those strict monasteries, if you wanted to ordain as a monk, you had to make your own robes, starting with white cloth, which you had to learn how to sew, so you could sew the 3 robes together, which took a long time. and then you'd have to dye them, and we'd use jackfruit wood as the source of our dye. We'd have a few old jackfruit logs, we'd get a machete which we had to sharpen up ourselves and chop the wood into little chips. Then we would have to haul water out of the well, there was no running water, and we'd take a big bowl, put ash on the bottom to stop it from burning, and we'd light a fire underneath it and boil water, put the chips in that water to get the sap out of the wood, and then to strain it, and then to concentrate the sap into real strong dye, and then dye the robes. It took about 3 or 4 dyeings. After we dyed the robe, we had to hang it on a line and keep on moving the robe every 5 minutes so the dye didn't streak. That was a lot of hard work. I'd done that myself many times, but on this occasion there was 3 of my friends were ordaining, and they had to make their own robes. They'd been up already for 2 nights without any sleeping. And if ever you've gone without sleep for that amount of time, it's really physical torture. And that evening, after the evening meeting, we did some meditation and chanting, listened to a little talk. I broke the rules. We weren't supposed to help these people. But you can't let your friends be so tired. I went to the dyeing shed and I told them, guys, you go take a rest. I look after the dyeing all night for you. An amazing thing was they never argued. They went. They were off. And so I looked after the whole thing all night. And when it came to 3 o'clock in the morning bell went. They came back about 3:15. And when they came back, I went off to the morning chanting and meditation. I never felt tired, even though I hadn't slept all night. When the chanting was being done, I had full energy. When you were meditating, you weren't sleepy. And on the arms down afterwards, I was full of energy. It was so strange to me that how come you feel so alive, so much energy, and so happy when I haven't slept all night? And I asked the monk who was the abbot then, he said, because you have helped somebody else. And that just clicked for me. Every time you serve and help other people, you do get energy. It's another way of giving your time, and you get instant rewards. And I know that so well these days. Another way to overcome depression, it's not just counseling and meditation, it is community work. Getting out into the community and giving your time for something like the Brahm Center or the BF or a hospital or an old people's home, I don't care what it is, but contributing your time to an organization, number one, it gives you a sense of self-worth. You're actually doing something for others. Number two, you always learn from the people you help much more than you ever give. And number three, you do create energy in your life. You have more energy when you serve others. Physically, you may be a bit tired sometimes, but in your heart, you've got huge amounts of energy, which means you don't get depressed. One of the reasons why people get depressed these days is because they think they're too busy to help in community work. Now, when I was, again, student at Cambridge, one of my friends who was a Christian, actually I was the only Buddhist, no, there was a few other Buddhists, but most of my friends were Christians, and he told me one day when we were having a cup of coffee, he was volunteering to spend an afternoon every week at the local hospital for the mentally disabled. It's like, a charity work service. And when I heard my Christian friend was doing that, I had to say, I want to come too. It wasn't being generous or compassion. It was just being proud. If the Christians can do it, the Buddhists can do it as well. So I had to go as well. And this is not an exaggeration. The Christians, after 2 or 3 weeks, they dropped out. And I kept on going for 2 years. And I spent one afternoon every week at Fulbourn Hospital, just outside of Cambridge, just doing OT work for those with Down syndrome. And first couple of weeks, yes, it was community service. After that, it was an afternoon outing I always looked forward to. I'd rearranged tutorials and supervisions, everything, so I could always go there every afternoon. every Thursday afternoon, I think it was. Not only did I get a sense of self-worth actually giving to others, but I learned so much from those Down syndrome children. They were not intelligent in the usual sense of the word, not like the people I hang out with in Cambridge, the Nobel laureates and the professors. But when it came to emotional intelligence, they were geniuses. I would walk from the bus into their unit, they would see me coming, and they could know straight away if I had a bad evening the night before with my girlfriend. They knew if I was upset. They could see it straight away. And that really surprised me. They were so emotionally intelligent. And if I felt down or upset, they would just get hold of me and give me a big hug. And that was very difficult in the 60s and 70s for a man to be hugged by another man. Especially the English. You know, I wasn't gay, I had girlfriends. But these people were showing me emotional intelligence. And if today that I am a teacher who can connect with some of you and are sensitive, I thank those Down syndrome children for teaching me this. I don't think I learned that in Thailand. I learned that through some service, being able to meet another person's heart with my heart and just to know how they're feeling so you can be sensitive. So this is what I learned. So one wonderful act of giving is giving your time for an organization. It's much tougher than giving money, but my goodness, it works. And when you do give your time, again, you learn so much about yourselves and interacting with other people, but you get so much sense of self-worth. So many people, they get depressed because they think they're not worth anything. You ask any psychologist, and that's one of the biggest problems in life for men and women, they think they don't reach the standard required of life. They always feel they're not really worthy. And that's one of the reasons why people do get depressed, and also why they get failing in life, because they don't think they deserve to succeed. You ask any psychologist that. Giving you a sense of self-worth helps in all aspects of your life. You find you're more successful at work, in your relationships, and also in life, and your health improves as well. Has many, many benefits. But also it gives you so much happiness and joy. Everybody knows that if you have $10 and you give it to somebody else, or you spend it on yourself, study after study after study has proved that $10 spent on somebody else, you get far more happiness and benefit than if you spend it on yourself. You actually feel much better. So what does that actually mean in our life? It means that we do take that opportunity whenever there's a possibility to help, to serve, to give. And I've taught that so much in the monastery in which I live. Whenever there's a duty to be done, no one ever says, oh, it's your turn, I did it last week. People actually rush to do it first. When I was in Kuala Lumpur recently, I told the story of Ajahn Chah's feet. Ajahn Chah's foot story is this. When we went for alms round in the morning, we would always walk barefoot. And so we'd be very dirty before we came back to the hall. We had to wash our feet. But when Ajahn Chah came back, he never washed his feet. About 20 monks would rush up and wash his feet for him. And I thought, that's really stupid. Ajahn Chah, he's old enough to wash his own feet. What does he, and anyway, what does he want 20 people to wash his foot for? Look, it wouldn't be better to have a roster, you do it Monday, you do it Tuesday. That's what a Westerner thinks. And maybe at the most 1 monk per foot. Not 10 on each. And I thought that was so stupid, but people kept on doing it. So again, I was always trained as a scientist, always, well, if you can't understand it, do it and find out what's going on. So one day I decided, that day I am going to wash Ajahn Chah's feet. And it's not an easy thing to do. because you have to be fast. So I made sure I came back early. I had everything ready, and I was poised like a cat, ready to pounce on my teacher's feet. And so were a number of other monks as well. And when he came close, I rushed up and I ran. And I actually got a whole toe all to myself. I did. I got a toe. And I was washing it and rubbing it and cleaning it. I felt so happy. Now I understand it wasn't crazy at all. It was actually fun. And when I told that over in Kuala Lumpur on this retreat, just after the talk, had a couple of the boys grab my feet and started washing. So it doesn't matter, they didn't need to be washed. They were clean. That's not the point. Serving other people. Just doing something which you don't need to do, but because it's worth doing. Just when you get to the washing up afterwards, it's not whose turn it is. You rush up like a cat pounce. No, I want to do it today. I want to do it. It's my turn. I want to do it. And you actually fight over doing the duties. That's what we do at Bodhinyana Monastery where I live. Whoever's turn it is, other people try and do it first. Ha ha ha, you're too slow. I did it first. Could you do that at home when it gets to washing the dishes? No, I'll do it first. Ha ha ha. Because that's the whole idea of doing service. It makes it far more fun. And you realize you get much energy contributing to doing things. That's one of my problems these days. People won't let me do the service. Now, sometimes I did try to wash the dishes in Bodhinyana Monastery. Well, why not? Okay, I'm a senior monk. It doesn't matter, I can't wash the dishes. And I tried to wash the dishes, and somebody came and took the tea towel and pulled it away from me. And I pulled it back. And I pulled it back. So that is why you get the joy of giving. But it's not just the joy of giving. Sometimes the karmic rewards of giving are immense. One of my favorite stories, I probably told it to you before, but who cares? It's one of my favorite ones, was the story of the doctor in the United States. Now, you have to start when he was a medical student. Anyone who's ever been to the United States knows that if you're a medical student, it costs a huge amount of money. And you don't get government subsidies to be a med student. So this poor boy, he had to work his way through med school, getting whatever job he could do during the vacations and on the weekend to help pay his living expenses and also tuition expenses to go through med school. And he wrote that one day, during the summer vacation, he got a job of selling, I don't know say what, but selling door to door. The old door-to-door salesman. One of the worst jobs you can ever do. Knocking on the door when somebody asks, "Madam, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy that?" Do they still do that in Singapore? They do? Yeah, okay. The door-to-door salesman. And this poor student, he'd been going all day in a hot day, knocking on doors, most of the time being rejected. "No, thank you, not today. If you do that again, we'll set the dog on you." People are very unkind sometimes. So, he knocked on one person's door. This woman answered the door. He said, "Do you want to buy something?" He said, "No, go away." But then she stopped and asked this young man, he said, "Have you had anything to eat today? Or anything to drink?" He said, "Actually, not since the morning. It was mid-afternoon." She says, "Hang on, young man." And she just went to the kitchen and just gave him a glass of milk and 2 biscuits, 2 cookies. That's all. Just a little act of kindness for a student who was working very hard. And he always remembered that, the kindness of somebody who just gave him a glass of milk and 2 cookies. Fast forward 25 years, and now he's a very skilled surgeon, an oncologist, treating people with cancers. And he wrote that one of his friends referred a case which was incredibly difficult, a woman who had a very, very severe cancer, and no other people were willing to operate on her because it was just too dangerous and the chances of survival were just not worth it. But when he looked at the case, he decided he would give it a try. Not just give it a try, but he would give it everything he had. He called in favors from other anaesthetists and support medical staff throughout the country, flew them to New York to try and help this woman. It was a number of operations, it was a long process, but in the end, he managed to succeed and pull her through, to confirm that she was in remission and she could probably expect to live another 10, even 20, 30 years. It was a great success. So the woman was overjoyed that she would live, but there was still another problem, the bill. Because if you have such treatment in the United States, it costs much more than this center costs. It's huge amounts of money. But when she opened the bill from the hospital, with trepidation, all it said on the bill was paid 25 years ago with a glass of milk and 2 cookies. It was the same woman. He'd been referred this case, a true story, referred this case, and he would have just thrown it away as impossible, but he recognized the address, checked up. That woman had been living there for the past 30 or 40 years. It was her. He recognized this woman in great trouble was the same woman who did a little act of kindness when he was a student. And he decided he's going to give everything he had to this case. And he did pull her through. And as his last act of kindness, he wrote on the bill, paid 25 years ago with a glass of milk and 2 cookies. He paid the bill himself. Now that is the result of kindness. Never ever think it doesn't come back to you. Never think that you give a glass of milk and 2 cookies, you only get a glass of milk and 2 cookies back. You don't. You get it with interest. Compounded, huge interest. A whole big medical bill and your life. Now, I always love that story because that really teaches me about any opportunity to be kind, to be generous, to be compassionate. You never turn that aside. It's such a beautiful thing to do. And of all the hard work and all the generosity which you do, afterwards you look on what you've achieved. You all know that the last project which I did in Perth was the Jhana Grove Retreat Centre, which many of you really helped big time with. That's why I always invite you, please come and visit that. That's 5-star retreat centre. And like many projects, and I'm sure it's the same with this BF centre here, yes, it should be finished in time, but it's always completed in the last moment. Even our retreat centre in Perth, many of you came for the opening. The monks were working, finishing the floor the day before, actually not the day, the morning before the ceremony till 4 o'clock in the morning. The builders were hopeless. So what we have this big source of inspirational energy called monks. The builders have gone home, we're going to finish it. So these monks were up, they've been working all day, they carried on, they finished about 4 o'clock to finish it for the ceremony in the morning, and I was there for most of that time. And we did the ceremony, and you know how hard it is to organize ceremonies, to work. I was the center of that, and part of the ceremony was taking a Buddha statue which was for our retreat center, from our monastery to the retreat center, a journey of about half a kilometer. We carried it in procession. And I don't know if you saw me, the cameras weren't on me. I started, the first time I could get a rest, when I could think of what we've done. And I think of all that hard work. It was about 6 years, or 5 or 6 years of hard work, from planning to gathering the money to building it, and I did a lot of that work myself, physical work, and I thought what we've achieved, and that's when I got the result of that good karma. You cried. And that was such a beautiful tears. I've done that several times. When I have really given till it hurts, gone without sleep, put yourself on the line. No, because people kept on saying, you can't finish this in time, it's impossible, it can't be done. You say that to me, or you say that to a good Buddhist, it can't be done, and you say, wow, this is a challenge, it's going to be done. And it is done. And when you give like that, that's when you get this incredible joy. That's when you cry. You realize you've actually done something. You've made something which was very difficult, and you've achieved something which you will remember till the dying days. What did you do in your life which was really important? You built the BF up. You've managed to create, you people involved in the center, you created this place. Without you, it would not be here. Remember that. Dwell on that. Think of that. That will make you emotional and cry. There was an article in the Australia about Singapore of being the least emotional people in the whole world. I'm going to change that. Did you see that? Yeah. They didn't obviously come to the BF centres. They went somewhere else. Because you allow those emotions to come. These are the positive emotions. Sometimes when I first started teaching Buddhism in Australia, they thought an enlightened person, the one who was so enlightened, had horizontal mouth. They never got angry, but they never laughed. They were like some robot. No attachments, no laughing, no joy. And I had to do a lot of work convincing people that is not the purpose of Buddhism. And actually to make you a robot, some cyborg, some alien from outer space. No, the job of Buddhist practice is to let go of the negative emotions. The fear, the guilt, the grief, the anger, the depression. That's negative emotions. And to cultivate the positive emotions, the inspiration, the joy, the love, the kindness, the compassion. Those are the positive emotions, and that's what we generate while we let go of the negative ones. And when those positive emotions come really strong, you feel like crying, you feel like dancing, you feel like laughing. So please, cultivate the positive emotions. And that is our Buddhist practice. And one of those is remembering all those kind and generous acts you've done in the past that really uplifts you. Sometimes I say I do work really hard and I get very tired. And sometimes when I get tired I think I shouldn't give a talk now. How many of you worked all over Christmas and are going to work all over New Year? People complain, they say, their boss makes them work 12 or 15 hours a day. And I say, but at least you can come here on retreat and you're working. I work 7 days a week. I had to work over Christmas and New Year and Chinese New Year and Waisak. Every holiday I have to work even harder. And I'm only starting. There's a saying that life begins at 70 for holy monks. That's when we really have to work hard. I'm only just starting, so you're going to really be squeezing me the more years. I was just a bit concerned when you say now you've got 2 Sunday services. You're going to make people like me work twice as hard. But do I mind? No. The reason why, because I realize this is giving. And I get more energy and more joy out of this. So please get a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th Buddhist Fellowship Center. And you do get lots of happiness out of that. And when I have to meditate, because I meditate in public. And imagine, I'm sitting there meditating and I fall asleep and fall off the chair and hit my head. Would you be impressed? You would? Oh, thank you very much. No! So, when I need to meditate and I'm tired, or need to give a talk and I've been talking all day, you know one of my tricks? And I'll share it with you, and it works. I just sit in the room beforehand and I start thinking, what have I done today? How much have I given? How much have I served? And I don't just dismiss that. I actually remember it and dwell on it and think about it. And when I remember, dwell and think about it again and again and again, it's like getting this huge surge of energy. My goodness, I have made a difference. I've saved a lot of people suffering. I just said a few words to them, and it worked. They got it, which meant that they could stay with a partner. They didn't need to get separated. I said that to their kid. The kid understood, and so they can do better at school. I said that to a girl who hadn't found a boyfriend yet. She said, oh yeah, I know how to do it now. Whatever it was, you actually gave, you served, and it worked. And straight away, the back gets straight. The energy starts to surge. It is learning how to understand and draw the benefits from all your generosity. The trouble is, many of you think, oh no, I did nothing. Oh, I just gave. That's what a monk has to do. No! Remember it, dwell upon it. You're a good person. In Buddhism, we call it jaganusati. It's a Pali word. It means reflecting, meditating on your generosity. Meditating on it. And you get this huge surge of joy. Yes, you do make good karma and some bad karma sometimes, but you make a lot of good karma. Why is it that people don't reap the benefits of the good karma? The reason is you've got so much good karma in the bank. You just have forgotten your PIN number. You can't get it out. And this is your PIN number. You remember it. You keep thinking about it. And all that good karma, the sacrifice, the work which you have given, you remember it, and straight away you feel good, you feel powerful, you feel happy. Anytime I'm tired, I can just remember that time I just gave £10 to an orphanage. And I get free energy and happiness every time. I just remember somebody I served and helped, which I shouldn't have done. Before I came here, I was over in Kuala Lumpur, but before I did that, I went to Melbourne for one day. It was not on the way. It's totally the opposite direction, another 5-hour flight. The reason I did that, when I should have been taking a rest, was that it was the father of an old friend had passed away last year, and they wanted to do a memorial service for him. And they said it really would mean a lot to us and the whole family, Ajahn Brahm, if you can come just for one night. And it's stupid to come all that way, just for a memorial service. I should be resting, preparing to teach a retreat in Kuala Lumpur. So I went. And just to do something for a family. Said it meant so much to us. Thank you really for coming for this. It was great. Other times people have called me and they say, we see you on YouTube every week. It's my husband's birthday tomorrow. You couldn't just give him a call and wish him happy birthday, could you? It was a stupid thing. So I do it every time. She gives me the number and I call him. And he said, hello. And I said, this is Ajahn Brahm here. Happy birthday. Ajahn Brahm. He said, is this a joke? Is it really? He said, yeah, of course it's me. And that gives me so much happiness. And it gives him happiness. Even though I'm sort of spending time I should be doing something else, it works. Now that is the generosity which I remember when I get tired. And that really gives you huge amounts of energy. So you can always perform, you can always be happy, you can always do things whenever you want. And also, I don't know why this is, I've been telling people it's been about 21 years since I was last sick. And sometimes, how come, Ajahn Brahm? Because I work so hard. Surely you must get a cold. Sometimes you go on these retreats because everybody is with each other for maybe, I don't know how many hours a day, all in the same room, all sort of breathing in and breathing out the same bugs. And they get colds, they get sick. I never do. Why? And it's because the good energy you always put into what you're doing. If you can remember all of the times you've been good and generous, you recall that, it gives you so much energy. You will be putting the doctors out of business. You do, because it gives you the happiness. You feel good about yourself. That is why the joy of generosity was talked about by the Buddha, one of the 40 meditation objects. The breath is one of those 40s. Remembering your generosity is another one of those 40s. So the generosity was recognized by the Buddha as something. It's not just money, it's your time, your energy, your forgiveness, which is again giving other people the benefit of the doubt. All that giving is so beautiful. It is a cause for happiness. And this other thing about giving, which I always noticed, why is it that people you care for, you respect, and you love, why is it we always want to express that love through giving? And the reason is that giving and love are intimately connected. They're so close. So close that the German word for love is Liebe, which is connected to the word liberality, giving, being a liberal person, always giving to other people, and also close to the word liberty, to be free. When I saw that in this old English language, of old German, I think it was based on Latin, to see love, freedom and giving are all connected. I thought, yes, they are. Because that's what we do to the people we love. It can be their birthday, it can be Christmas, Chinese New Year, or Valentine's Day. What do you do on Valentine's Day? You give the person you love a really, really nice gift. There was a story of this lawyer who went to the post office on the day before Valentine's Day and sent 50 Valentine's Day cards, all scented with hearts on the cover to different women. And when the post office person, who was also a woman, said, "That's adultery, 50 women you're sending Valentine's Day cards to, that's gross." And he said, no, I'm just making more business because I'm a divorce lawyer. People don't know who sent the cards to. Okay, what's the other Valentine's Day story, joke? About the man who asked his wife, "It's Valentine's Day tomorrow, darling, what would you like?" And he said, no, I don't need anything for Valentine's Day. Guys, when she says that, she wants something. And he was smart enough. He said, no, what do you want? Give me some help. What would you really like? And she said, something with diamonds in. So you know what he got her for her Valentine's Day present? A pack of playing cards. Well, it's got diamonds in. It's got 13 diamonds. But it is a tradition that we give to express our love, to express our respect. That is why I get too fat, because you give, because you love me, you love all the teachings, and it's not just a teacher. You know, we've got a relationship together now. And that's why you give me so much. And that's why I have to eat it. A gift of love should never be thrown back again. So that's why, what's the symbol of love? The zero. That's why I'm beginning to be like a round. I've told people in Kuala Lumpur, because for a long time now they've asked, how do you address a monk? And for many years it was his emptiness. That was the preferred. But now I've changed that now. So if you want to write a letter or address me, it's your roundness, Ajahn Brahm. So his roundness. That's Ajahn Brahm. But no, it is. We like to give out of love. And that's also why you want to give, say, to the Buddhist fellowship or give to a good cause. It's saying it's an act of kindness, an act of compassion, it's an act of love. And if anybody gives you anything, you must always receive it. Don't just say, no, I don't need that. No, give it to someone else. No, it's not for me. Receive it first and then give it on. Because there's nothing worse in life than you give a gift to someone and say, no, I don't want it. What it is love has been rejected. Kindness has been destroyed. Which is why whatever is given, always receive it. I've received some very strange presents. Really strange. I've received many combs. Brushes. And it's a good fun. They're just having a joke. So I receive it. Thank you so much. Just what I needed. And then you give it on to somebody else. And they do that because they love you and they want to give something. So it is an act of love. Every act of kindness and giving. The giving of your time to get this center, to buy it, to design it, to fund it, to put your guarantee the loan. It's not just generosity. It's an act of love. You respect what this place is for, what it's doing, and how much work, and you love what it's doing, and you give as an act of love. That's what makes this place a place of love and compassion. Not just giving. It's love, kindness, metta, the compassion which makes this place a beautiful place. You know that giving is much better than having to have so many donation boxes and having to charge people to come in. So in Buddhism, you should never charge people to come into any talk. Instead, free entry, always. But put a donation box at the door to go out. It's free to come in, but my goodness, you have to pay to go out, especially if you leave early. I should have been in business. I know all the scams. And a lot of times, the BF has done this. Now, our tradition has done this many times. Is we say, no, we're not going to charge. And people say, how on earth can you survive? How can you pay the bills? And he said, no, we're not going to charge. We're going to do it out of love. People realize there's a need, and they will actually give. Even our retreat centre is a good example. I know sometimes Angie argues with me about this. We don't charge for retreats, not our retreats. You can give a booking, like a reserve donation for the room, but you can always get it back again. You just tick a box and it's given straight back to you. It's all done by donation. And people said, how on earth can you survive like that? People won't give. They do. If you charge for something, they'll only give the going rate. If you say donation only, they always give much more. Why? It's because you're touching people's hearts. It's not business. Buddhism is not a business. We're not a corporation. Some Buddhist temples are businesses, and that's really terrible. It's got no love to it at all. It's just like going to the shopping mall. If you want to do that for the BF, you should follow my advice and have a modern Buddhist center in Singapore run along corporate lines. Drive through temple. People are really busy. So just have a drive-through temple. You go to the first window, and what do you want? Do you want chanting? Do you want amulets, holy water, or advice? And then once you press the button, what you want, marriage advice, meditation advice, your kids at school, how to pass the exams, whatever it is, you press the button, you go to the next window, and you get this chanting, a special chanting for passing exams, a special a squirt of holy water from the nozzle if you're having trouble with the marriage, or especially ghosts, a special ghost chant, you just press the button, water comes out to keep you away from ghosts, and amulets, whatever else, and then you go to the last window where you pay. You haven't got enough time to go to temples. So imagine a drive-through Buddhist temple doing all the services. That would be really popular. I'm sure it would actually succeed in Singapore and make a fortune. But that's not Buddhism. We don't want to do things like that. It's much better when it's totally done from the heart, trusting people to actually, when it's needed, to come up with the cash. And it's funny, they always come up with the cash when it's needed. Sometimes at the last moment. Sometimes in the most unexpected ways. Our nuns' monastery for bhikkhunis, how it started, I really like telling that story. You know, I realized a long time ago that we had our city centre, we had our monastery for monks, but there was something missing. You know, women, monks, nuns. And you can't just ordain somebody, you've got to have a place for them first. So the first stage was getting a monastery for women. So I put my hand up, let's do it. Everybody was very happy to do it. The way we do things in Australia, we start a fund first of all. So people can get donations, it has to be authorised through the bank and the government, a fund for Bhikkhuni's monastery, for nuns' monastery. Now only a few dollars came here, a few dollars came there. It was getting nowhere. Until one day this guy came to see me. And he was an Australian Caucasian in jeans and a t-shirt. And he said that his wife had just given birth to their first child, a girl. And he said, to celebrate the birth of my first child, a girl, I want to make a donation to your nuns' monastery. He said, I'm a Buddhist, and I don't know if she'll ever want to be a Buddhist nun, but I want her to have the opportunity to do so if she wishes. And so he wrote out a check for $250,000. And my hand was shaking, so I took it. I've never seen such a big check. And he came, he gave it to me, and I've never seen him since. Don't know what happened to him. And he didn't look like a rich guy, and the check never bounced. And that's how we started our nuns' monastery. Just incredible generosity out of nowhere. And that is the beauty, I think, of generosity. It seems to be like the forces of nature, the forces of karma. When it's really needed, it comes. Trust in that. If you really have a big debt for the Buddhist fellowship, don't worry. When it's really needed, somebody or somehow or other, it just appears. If you have that sort of faith and it's a really good cause, and the BF is a good cause, otherwise I wouldn't keep coming here to teach you people. It is a beautiful cause. It's a type of Buddhism which I really believe in. Non-sectarian. You don't just get Ajahn Brahm or Ajahn Brahm clones like Ajahn Brahmali or Sujato. You get Tibetan teachers, Zen teachers, lay teachers. It is a sort of Buddhism I really agree with. It's just Buddhism. It's not Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana. It's just Buddhism, for goodness sake. And it is something which takes away all the rituals, all of the incense smoke. You go in some temples, the incense smoke is so thick you can't see the Buddha. You know what I mean? That's a metaphor. The rituals are so deep you can't even get to the heart of Buddhism. So this takes away the incense smoke, takes away the ritual, so you can get to the heart of this teaching, how the Buddha taught. That's why that he had so many disciples, because it was about the daily life, how to lessen the problems and difficulties of life, how to find peace, how to find truth, real wisdom in life. Not just telling you what to believe, but saying, look, you've got meditation, you've got virtue, this is why it works, do it. Be compassionate, be kind. This is why you do these things. It was such a beautiful teaching, that's why it became a world religion. Why can't it do that again? It's only if we take away, say, the incense smoke and we really get close to the original teachings, which you're doing here. That's why I like coming. That's why it's good to support the BF. This is the Buddhism which will grow and flourish. The other types of Buddhism is like museum Buddhism. Just like going to museums, seeing the past, this is what it used to be, but it's only a window into the past, it's not really recreating the real heart of these teachings. So it is a worthwhile cause. Because it is a worthwhile cause, the funds will come. You can give money to an old people's home. You can give money to a hospital. You can give money to other charitable causes like cancer foundations or whatever. But for a Buddhist organization like this, you are getting to the root cause of the problems. Why is it that old people have to be in a home? Why is it there are orphans? Why is it that so many people get sick? If you come to places like this, as Andrew was saying, they don't get depressed in the first place. They don't get sick. People look after their kids and the elderly people. This actually gets to the root of the problem. And I've seen that so many times. Buddhist temples are huge social resources which literally take away so much sickness, so much depression, so much anger, so much things which split up marriages, which make kids take drugs. Come here and it stops it. You get to the heart of the problem. That's why this place is a huge resource. And if the Singapore government knew what the BF was doing, they would pay off that $1 million loan. They know this is helping the people. This is saving them money. But of course they don't realize that yet. And it's good they don't realize that, because if they did, you wouldn't have the chance to pay off that loan for them. So this is the joys of generosity, the meaning behind it. And I don't mind supporting that because I know it works. Everything I said, it's not that I believe in. I practice it, I know it works, it is true. So you get in there, give as much as you can, not necessarily money. Yeah, you do need money, but you also need the help, people joining in, people giving their time. You will never lose by volunteering that time. And it's not a case of, oh, I do it Monday, you just do it because it needs doing. If you see a toe of Ajahn Chah, you have to rush to wash it. If you see a job needs to be done in the BF, you have to be fast. Otherwise someone else does it. If you understand that, you understand the joy of giving. Thank you. Okay, a few questions, comments, complaints, or whatever. Sadhu. Okay.
Now I'd like to open up to the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand and I'll pass you the microphone.
Have you got a question, Angie?
She usually has.
No, I was going to let the floor take it first. And also, if you have a question, please ask, because you benefit everyone when Ajahn Brahm answers it, rather than you go up privately. And today, he is going to disappear at 9:30, so you won't have a chance to queue up for him.
Supposed to be 9:15. It was 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9:30.
Okay, good evening, Ajahn. I have a question to make. Now and then, I think we face many conflicts in workplace environment, and sometimes it can lead to some pretty nasty confrontations. So do you have any recommendations on how we can try to avoid these situations? We can try to see in a more positive light, so as to prevent ourselves from getting overly worked up regarding this issue.
Okay, remember when people make you angry, they don't have to make you angry. They are the ones doing the bad karma, aren't they? Did you do any bad karma? So why should you suffer? So if someone else does something bad, I say, well, that's their bad karma. I'm not going to spoil my day for what they did. They can call me all sorts of names, but I will never allow anybody to upset me. If someone calls me a fat pig, I just say, oink. If someone tries to ridicule me by rubbing my tummy for good luck, I let them. This Chinese lady did that about a few months ago in Perth. They passed me and they thought, oh, this is like Maitreya the Buddha. And they rubbed my tummy.
Did you confess? You're not supposed to be touched by a woman.
It was not my fault. I've told hundreds of people. So that's one of the things. In an office or in any environment, don't let people push your buttons. So if they do get angry, they do shout at you, keep peaceful. It's a tough thing to do, but you can do it. And then they find that they realize that this guy's got his act together. And they don't try and upset you anymore. It's a waste of time. So that's one thing you can do in an office. The other thing, if you've got a boss from hell, and you all know what boss from hells are, and they give you too much work to do, don't get angry at them, because if you get angry at them, you're actually losing your efficiency. Forget what they said. You can't do more work than you can do. So, you just forget what they said and just focus on the work. If you focus on what they say, you're not putting all your energy and attention on the work you have to do. Half your mind's on the work and half your mind is on what the boss said, which means you're not productive. Whatever the boss says, let it go. Instead, put all your attention 100% focused on the work you're doing right now. And then you find you are so productive, the boss will never sack you. But what happens with most people, when they're working, it's only 40-50% of their brain is on the work. The other is on office politics. The other is on the pretty girl working in the office on the other side. The other one is on what you're going to do when you leave tonight. You're so scattered, which means people are not productive. So if you can just focus, forget what the boss says, forget what you're going to do when you go home. Put 100% effort on what you're doing, and you'll find you're so productive. Whatever the boss says, you will always be a key worker. So anyway, that's one. You got some?
Yeah, before the
SMS?
next question, so whoever the owner of car SJS 6316G, you may want to go switch your lights off, otherwise I don't think your car is going to start again.
Ah.
SJS 6316, anyone here?
SGS 6316, you weren't mindful, so please turn off the lights of your car. Whose fault was it, the wife's or the husband's? It was our fault, not his, not hers.
Any other questions?
Another part of generosity, again, is giving people the benefit of the doubt. If that's your boss gets angry at you, don't think it's because your work isn't up to scratch. Give the boss the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's because they're in a bad mood today. Maybe it's because they had an argument with their wife. Maybe it's because they really had a tough time with their boss, the big boss. So give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I love doing that because that means I never get angry. When somebody cuts in front of me when I'm trying to get to the airport on time, I just think, well, maybe the person in the car's got a heart attack and they need to get there more importantly than I do. So I never think they're selfish. If anybody gets angry at me, or maybe they're just a bit crazy today. So I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. If they don't turn up on time for an appointment, I think, well, maybe they got caught in the traffic jam. Never think they're doing these things on purpose to hurt you. So giving your wife the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she didn't realize how expensive that dress really was. Give her the benefit of the doubt. Give your husband the benefit of the doubt. If he doesn't come home early from work, don't just assume he's got a mistress. Maybe he is working late in the office. Give him the benefit of the doubt, no? Because otherwise, if you don't trust people, you suffer more than anyone else.
Okay. Justin, you have a question? Oh, okay. Anyone else? Okay, if not, we will let Ajahn Brahm have a chance to rest early.
Night.
Yeah.
No, because sometimes if I go to bed too early, I talk in my sleep. I've got a certain amount of talking I have to do.
Well, he is actually going to be visiting somebody who's very ill.
Oh, that's true, yes.
Yeah, so he's not exactly going to get rest. But you might get to bed a bit earlier.